Get ready for the frequency. This is 1Trance podcast, where trance meets you with Reboot, Quantum Solar.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 1Trance podcast episode 3. I'm Reboot, also known as Manuel. Today's guest is a London-based trance DJ and producer active in the electronic dance scene, particularly in uplifting and main floor trance. He discovered his passion for dance way back in 1994, introduced by his sister to pioneer acts such as Prodigy, Chemical Brothers, and Orbital. This sparked a flame for his long journey into electronic music and production and DJing.
And I'm Quantum Solar. Our guest has built his sound around long-form storytelling both behind the decks and in the studio, blending melodic depth and club-ready drive. In this episode, we talk about musical identity, the evolution of trance, the balance between DJing and what it takes to stay authentic today. As a producer, he has released tracks on labels such as Digital Creation, with notable releases including Voice Within, Falling featuring Julie Thompson, and Culture Shock.
His music has appeared in trance compilations on platforms like Beatport, in the Trance Fusion series by LW Recordings, and Nothing But Transtopia. He also collaborates on remixes, such as the remix of Mike's Push Strange World. On the DJ side, because he's also DJing, he has performed at events like Frantic Timeless 25 and Minister of Sound, and his sets and tracks receive massive support in the trance community by appearing in radio shows such as the AfterHours.fm and the Year Countdown.
Our guest today is nothing other but Ben Skinner.
Welcome to the 1Trance podcast, Ben.
Thank you for having me on. So I'm Ben Skinner. I'm a UK-based trance. I also do hard trance, and I also do hard dance, DJ and producer. And as you said, I've got tracks now out on Digital Creation, Future Force, Impact Recordings, and then the big one we had was out on Tidy 2. So it's going well. So thanks for having me on and for people to hear the story.
You're more than welcome. As we mentioned here in the intro, you discovered dance music around 94 through artists like Prodigy and Orbital. What was that pivotal moment that made you specifically pivot against dance music and trance?
Yeah, so I was young back then. I mean, not to give my age away too much, I was sort of like 12 years old, but I had a really awesome, and she still is awesome, my older sister at the time. And we come from quite a musical family, obviously going, I was born in the 80s. So, there was a lot of, back then, I guess like Duran Duran, through to like Status Quo, Dire Straits. There was always music in the house, but music, I guess, it didn't sort of resonate with me personally, and it was my older sister Tara, so it was sort of like the mid-90s times, she was out, doing the whole sort of rave festival thing that was going on back then, and back then we used to have tape packs and tapes, cassettes, that kind of thing. And she would always have cassettes and stuff. And, some of these cassettes could be Prodigy. She was introducing me to that. And I loved the Prodigy. So, I used to remember just sort of sitting there, like 12 years old with my Walkman on in the bedroom, just laying there on the floor, listening to like the Experience album from the Prodigy, Music for a Generation, all this kind of stuff. And I was just so taken by it. I was just like blown away by it completely. But I guess, that sort of time, when I was at school, everyone was into that sort of, hardcore movement. There was a lot of like hardcore music back then, sort of drum and bass. And I guess that was like the trend sort of music back then, And I did like it, I was listening to it, but, it wasn't for me personally. I mean, I do respect hardcore. I guess I'm sort of, I don't know, I do kind of like hardcore, but, I didn't love hardcore.
No.
And it was just, I remember it was probably sort of more to sort of late 90s. It was one day after school, I just jumped on the bus and I went to my local town called Camberley in Surrey here in the UK. And they had two record shops there. One of the record shops was like this independent record shop. It was called the Rock Box. And it was that basically. It was like rock and indie music and all that kind of stuff. But at the back of the shop, they had this very small dance section. And I went back there and I kind of knew, so where the dance section is, to the left of me is like where the counter is. And I kind of knew the guy behind the counter because he kind of knew my sister, sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
was sort of sifting through it, and I pulled out this record. And the thing I liked back then, because obviously you're buying stuff on vinyl and things like that, was like
Yeah.
artwork and stuff on vinyls. And I just pulled out this record from the dance section, and it was the artwork that sort of gravitated me, I think, more to it. And I'm like, what's this? What's this sort of thing? And he goes, yeah, and that's, it was CJ Bolland. It was an album called Electronic Highway. So
Yeah.
CJ Bolland, as you probably know, he's a Belgian-based producer. I think he was born here in the UK, sort of moved over there. And Chris, I think his name was, he was like, yeah, get that. You're going to absolutely love that. I think it was the only copy there. And I remember sort of taking it home. And I put like back then I didn't have turntables or anything, but your mum kind of had that sort of stacked hi-fi system with the record player on the top kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I
And everyone
remember
was
those.
out that evening, those, yeah. And everyone was out that evening. I remember putting like the first record on, and I think the first track on there was called Towers of Nefelti or something like that. And it was like this blend of like electronic music cross breakbeat, cross drum and bass, cross rave, cross a whole lot of things. And I was just like, I've never heard anything like this before in my life, And I kept just pulling the needle back and listening to that track. I don't think I've ever listened to the whole album. I just kept pulling the needle back on this one tune. If you go on YouTube, I think it's on it. Go find it, listen to it. It is just absolutely
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm probably going
We
to go
will
there and
link to
listen.
it.
Yeah, but the sense it gave me was just like, it's hard to explain. I mean, trance music, put you in a trance, it's euphoria, that sort of thing. I mean, it wasn't actually a trance
That's
tune,
actually leads.
but it made me want to.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ben, but that's actually leading me up to the next question. So early on, did you already see trance as this journey genre, or did that understanding come
not
later
at all,
on?
because not at all, because weirdly, it pushed me into drum and bass. I'll be honest. And so I was like, yeah, I got really into like that drum and bass scene, but it wasn't like the real sort of DJ hype and Andy C. Zinc kind of drum and bass scene. It was more like the logical progression drum and bass scene, sort of LTJ Bookham, Pesce, Blame, those kind of artists. Because in a way, it was drum and bass, but it was quite euphoric in a way. I guess it was that sort of thing. The trance actually came about. A good friend of mine, a guy called Craig, I haven't seen him in a long time. He used to go by the name of DJ Hypnosis. He was the guy who actually taught me how to DJ back in the late 90s. And he loved drum and bass, but he was really getting into like the trance movement back then, when that was sort of getting like very mainstream, obviously the hard house sort of stuff. He said, look, Ben, you need to come to London. You need to, because at the time I was just DJing in like local towns. I was going to local clubs. I'd never experienced the London thing. And he's like, look, you need to come to London. It was a Friday night. There was a night that used to run heavily on a Friday night called Peach. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this will probably know what Peach is. It was like this
Probably, yeah.
long running night it was at Camden Palace, back when Camden was Camden Palace. And he took me there and he said, look, come check this night out. You're absolutely going to love it. And I remember going there because when you go to Camden Palace, you come off this tube station called Moreton Crescent. And I remember sort of walking round, and it was just like this huge building like I'd never seen before on like the corner of the road. And there was just queues of people just queuing all the way around this thing. And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, this must be quite good. It's quite popular.
What is this?
Yeah. Yeah, what is this? I've never
Is
seen
this
it
heaven?
before. And then yeah, exactly. And then we sort of went into the club, and everyone who knows Camden Palace knows this bit. But when you go into the club, obviously, you do your ticket thing, you get in, you hang your coat up, that kind of stuff. And then there's this tunnel, and you walk down this tunnel, and it goes down like a very sort of small slope. And as you come out the tunnel, you're in this like center of this like huge, almost like theater. Do you know what I mean? And I always remember that moment because when I walked through that tunnel and I came out, the track that was playing was Sasha Expander. And just walking into that tune and just seeing like this, it's just packed club. And I was just like, wow, yeah, this is hope. Do you know what I mean? It was just
This is where
brilliant.
I belong.
And this is where it belongs. But still at that moment, I wasn't like, I wasn't sort of, am I going to get into trance kind of thing? And I remember sort of, I think it was probably that night, one of the tracks that got played was Push Strange Worlds. Because I think that was when it just came out. It must have been around about sort of 2000 when that came out. I remember saying to my mate, I was like, what the hell is this tune? I mean, the place just erupted. And he's like, oh yeah, it's Push Strange World. And I always say to my friends, I feel like I've never experienced that Strange World moment in my life again, because listening to that tune right there and then took me back to listen, like finding music, listening to that CJ Bolland album, on my own in the living room for like 5 hours. It took me back to that moment of how great a track could be to pull you into it. And then I love trance, basically. I mean, I was always listening to, obviously, had stuff like BT Flame in June and all those kind of things. I was sort of listening to stuff, free drives on vinyl. But yeah, predominantly, I was mainly sort of a drum and bass DJ. And then I think it was probably not long after that, Camden Palace came to an end, and they had one night left at Camden Palace, and they called it Farewell Fridays. And my mate Craig, he was actually DJing there. He was doing the last set. And he spoke to the promotion. I think the promotion was Still Moving or something like that. And he spoke to him. He said, look, halfway at the end, half of my set, can my mate Ben jump on the decks with me? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh crap, my first set in London, I'm about to play Main Room Camden Palace on the last ever dance night at Camden Palace. And it was just, kind of one of those kind of moments.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of being back, we were backstage, we were sort of getting ready. I think there was another DJ going on before him, and the DJ was one of the headliners. And at the time, I knew obviously people like Paul Van Dyke and, all those kind of guys, but I never really knew the underground sort of hard trance London DJs. And then I remember sort of sitting there, and this guy sort of walked into the VIP room at the back. And when someone walks in and you instantly know that he's important. Do you know what I mean? He's something special, this guy. Who is it? And my mate Craig was like, oh, mate, how you doing? All this kind of stuff. And then he sort of got his record bag and he went and sort of DJ'd. And I said to my mate Craig, I said, who's that guy? Who is this sort of thing? He had loads of people around him. And he's like, oh, it's Phil Reynolds. And I'm like, I've never heard of him before. I'm going to go check him out. And honestly, what he did, it was like this hard trance set. Like I've just never heard trance music like this before. And it just blew me away. And it was at that point I knew where I wanted to go as a DJ and go down that route. And yeah, I pretty much became his biggest fanboy, basically. I just followed him around like a sheep, every event he played, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how it all started. So yeah, was a drum and bass DJ, then sort of turned trance, and then actually went back to drum and bass, and then back to trance, and then did a bit of house, used to play garage. I've done a few things. Trance has always been, trance or hard trance has obviously been like the main sort of focal point. But and I guess we'll get into it later.
But it's also good for you to come around as a producer to different genres to get inspiration you can use, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I do try and throw a lot of that into my tracks, I guess, especially if you listen to like Breathe, for instance, it's quite, in a way, it's quite atmospherical, and that's what I was trying to sort of put into there. Like a new track I've just done, I thought, well, how can I get like a drum and bass element into it? Actually, I did that it's coming out soon. I did a remix for Hazen Hawker of their track Highway. And I wanted to do like a really cool little breakbeat bit in the breakdown. And I thought, I'm going to go back to my roots a bit here. And I sort of grabbed like the Amon break, the Lee Collins Fink break. These are like real sort of junglist type breaks. And I was just chopping them up like I would have done sort of, I guess, back then, if I was sort of doing that back then, So yeah, I always try and sort of put little bits of influences from some other genres that I like into the track, but still trying to keep the track like focused on what it should be. It's end of the day, it's trance or hard trance or whatever it is. So
you've done collaborations and remixes too, like Skinner and Hops or Hoops. It's with two O's, right?
Skinner and Hoops.
Yeah. Strange World. How do you approach a remix like a classic like that? What's your way to grab it?
Delicately. Yeah, you got to do it delicately, I think.
Yeah, right.
Crash it. I mean, how I say to everyone is, when you remix a tune, you don't want to go in the intentions of trying to better the original, because you're never going to better the original. You want to sort of just go in and stay true to the original. And that's something I actually learned from a friend of mine called Carl Nicholson, because I did a remix for him, and I did a remix of Blueprint ages ago. And he's like, mate, you've completely changed the tune. It doesn't sound like Blueprint anymore. He's like, he said, let's just stay true to the original. And I always remember that. And that's kind of what we did with Strange World, was staying true to the original, but giving it our little touch, so we sped it right up to 145 BPM, because we're getting it into a hard dance set, and we wanted like this like monstrous kick and offbeat bass is kind of like what Skinner and Hoops is kind of all about, really.
Just give it your base.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
just it's almost like an edit more than a bootleg or a remix or what have you. But yeah, it really picked off that Strange World thing. We never really sort of pushed it over to excuse the pun, but we never pushed it over to him. I think I was. I don't want to say I was fairly fresh, but it was just when I was sort of, I guess, thinking I was getting good at producing. Probably I should go back and check the engineering on it before I sort of send it to anyone like that. But yeah, no, it done quite well, that one, actually.
Now, has that been your favorite collaboration remix for now?
Yes, I mean, I do like working with Hoops. I mean, the Skinner and Hoops stuff came about because, I mean, like me, Hoops is an old sort of London DJ. We used to be on the DJ circuit quite heavily in London throughout the mid to late noughties. But I never really knew him back then. I don't think he liked me either back then because he said I was always quite grumpy and arrogant, but I wasn't. I was probably just tired from being out all weekend, sort of thing. But yeah, we actually, I think we met at a house party one New Year's. It was quite some time ago now. Really sort of hashed a friendship kind of thing. And it was a few years back. He sort of said, "Oh, can we do a remix?" I think the first remix we done together was a track called Malice in Wonderland, which was done by Pants and Corset, which was like an old sort of hard trance sort of sound. And that one did quite well. And then he sort of calls me up and says, "Look, we've got to do Strange World." And I said, "Yeah, no, we have to do it, man, because it's Strange World, isn't it?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I really do enjoy working with Hoops. The track we done, Touch Me, that got sent out onto Tidy 2, done really well. That one was really interesting because that wasn't how the version should have gone. So originally with the Touch Me track, we tried to do a complete remix of Touch Me. Like I said, stay true to the original. And I made the tune, and I remember doing like a video in here. We put that out on Facebook, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, no, this is excellent. This is great." And then
Yeah, I remember that.
after the session, I went into the kitchen. My wife Lauren was in there, and she tells me the truth. And I played it to her, and she's like, "Ben, this is absolute garbage. It sounds crap." And I'm like, "You know what? You're right. It does. It sounds horrible." So I ended up sort of just getting Cassandra's vocal, taking it sort of off our remix, and then I made a completely whole new tune for that. So it's kind of like an original in a way, just using her vocal sort of placed strategically on that tune, and that's the one everyone started listening to and playing. Now, obviously, we couldn't sign the original Cassandra vocal from Rudy Silva on there when it got released. So luckily, Tidy Ammo, he had a vocal already that he sent over to me, and then I just had to sort of get that mixed in and make that fit. So yeah, I do enjoy writing music with Hoops. Collaborating. We've just done actually probably one of our best collaborations. It's all a bit under wraps at the moment, but we've just collaborated with a UK hard dance producer called Rob Tezera. He's absolutely amazing. And there's a very, very special vocalist involved in this, but I can't say too much at the moment.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
So, but you will find out quite a lot about that. Hopefully, in about March, I'm hoping there's certain people know about it. I think you might know about it, Manuel. I don't know if I sent you the draft of that, but if
Maybe.
not, I'm sorry. I'll send it to you. I will send it
sounds
to you.
good.
And then I've got current collaboration going on with Adam Ellis at the moment in the trance side of things. So that's going quite well. But yeah, I tend not to do too many collaborations, I guess. Yeah, it's did one with Chris M. Chris Mycock, Chris M. Got one done with him recently, and that's actually been signed. I don't know if we're allowed to say who that's been signed with. Yeah, but it's been signed to a really good label, actually, that one. So yeah,
Nice.
quite happy with that. But yeah.
So one of the things that you also do besides producing fantastically at that, I might say, you also actually DJ as well. You've done gigs and stuff. So when you are doing a live gig, how do you decide to hold back versus just lift the room up? Lift the roof out of the room kind of thing.
I guess I'm kind of known for the power hour, I would say. But yeah, I kind of don't hold back too much. I mean, yeah, you want to, I mean, the thing, how I always structure a set is I want a good intro. I mean, I make a lot of intros of someone's tune. I do like an intro edit. You know, when I come on after the DJ after me, I like to sort of just wind them down and then start, hi, this is me. And then, but it has to be like a big impact. And then I'll go straight in, mixing it into another track that absolutely explodes out of that one just to get everyone going. And that's been kind of like a signature thing that I kind of do. But yeah, I mean, sort of, yeah, but when you get sort of, I guess, kind of like halfway into the set, that's when you can be a bit more sort of experimental with what you're doing. You know, you want to sort of, you want to give the crowd time to breathe a little bit as well. You know, and at the end of the day, we do trance, we don't play gabba and things like that. So, you know,
Yeah,
you
I
do
know.
want them to sort of
So
enjoy
you
that.
start full speed ahead, and then kind of mellow out a little bit, give people a break,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
hit them up again.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because at the end of the day, as you know, most of the times you've only got an hour. It's 11, 12 tracks at the best, you know, so you got to
Yeah,
make sure that
correct.
every one of those tracks, yeah. You know, if I was doing, I mean, I did one last year. I did like a 90-minute set, and in that set, I had more time to sort of play around with how that set was going to flow, you know. But
Exactly.
only having an hour, you know, you really just want to get to it, you know, especially what
Exactly.
depending, I guess, what time you're playing and stuff like that. But you know, I've always, you know, I've always kind of said, you kind of make, you know, I mean, this in the nicest possible way, but kind of make the DJ before you look like your warm up DJ, and the DJ coming on after you worry with it. All right, if you can
Exactly.
do that, you can look set
You're right. You're
without being
right.
horrible. I love all my DJ
Exactly.
friends.
So but I have to say that you have actually played at some legendary places such as Ministry of
Yeah,
Sound for events like
yeah,
Frantic Timeless.
yes.
You did a set there with hoops. So how, being more hardcore per se, how do you prepare a set for that much energy for the crowd?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so I mean, I guess so. The skinner and hoops thing is more sort of hard dance, and you know, hard dance is quite it's fall to the floor anyway. It's going for it, you know, the way sort of hard dance is made. Whenever we got a set coming up, we always try and make sure we get in here into the studio and get a new track from us done for that set, which we like, which we kind of like doing. I'll be honest, I'm so busy with production stuff. I kind of leave the set building at the moment to hoops, and then I'll change some stuff for what he's
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
But yeah, with the good thing is like the gigs we play at like Frantic, for instance, Timeless. I mean, we've been Frantic ravers for 25 years, you know, so
Wow.
we come from a raving
Wow.
background as well as a DJing background. So we kind of know what the dance floor of that event likes in a way. So you can almost just go, right, yeah, that's going to go off well, that's going to go off well, that's going to, yeah, everyone's going to love that one.
So
You know what I
you
mean?
know from experience, of course.
Yeah, and you know, we try and be a little bit different as well. We don't want to go like everyone does at Frantic, just go straight in with Tony DeVitt stuff. You know, all like the known tracks that people always play. We always try and find stuff that is a really great track that hopefully no one's going to play in that club. So we're kind of the only people who would play that tune. So yeah, we do look for music like that as well. But yeah, we do structure our tracks and sorry, our sets. So we always make sure we got some backups just in case, basically,
Exactly.
on the stick.
In your opinion, because like I said, you've DJed and done some good sets. In your opinion, what separates a DJ set, a good DJ set, from a memorable one? What's
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a good question actually. I mean, I don't know if anyone else finds this being a DJ, but sometimes it can be quite irritating being a DJ on the dance floor, thinking you missed your drop point and stuff like that. So anyone that doesn't miss drop points is obviously got a big tick in my book. You know, like, I mean, I'm not into like, you know, the pantomime type DJs. I like a DJ who's zoning in and what he's should be doing, which is playing the music and playing the music well. I mean, obviously he can raise his arm and fist pump and all this stuff. But you know, you do want to be taken on board with what they're playing, especially in trance as well. And I think the guy who'd done that really well for me, and it always stands out for me, it was a couple of years ago. We went to Captured Festival in Malta, and my wife Lauren, she's not really a trance fan. She's still like a real big sort of drum and bass head. And it was this one set that she was like, "Yeah, I like trance now. This is just awesome." And I said, "Look, you're going to love this set coming on." And it was Thrill Seekers. He did the Hydra set,
Yep.
and it was just like it was like an hour as if he hadn't mixed a tune to a tune. it was just
So you couldn't even
seamless. Do you know what I mean?
you can even feel the transitions.
No, no, you couldn't tell, and it was just so perfect. And like the tunes he was playing, it's like I've never heard this one, never heard this one. You know what I mean? It was, and like sets like that, yeah, they always stand out to me. I guess as well, sort of DJs, if you're going to thump it as well, like I was saying earlier, what we do is not play music by numbers, not think, okay, I'm going to have to anthem bash to get everyone to like my set. You know,
Yeah,
turn the
yeah.
record over. You know, check the B sides out because you know there's so much great music out there. You know, it's kind of like what I've been trying to do this year in like my radio shows and things. You know, like tracks like Hocus Pocus from Angelus. You know, it's such a great tune. You know, in my opinion, that's track of the year. You know, I absolutely love that track. But every time you go out, you never hear it, and it's annoying because it's a great track. And you know, so I always like to try and get tunes like that in sets.
And it's like a real quick, that's like, I'm not a professional DJ. I just do this thing at home for fun, as you know, you've seen my clips.
Yeah,
But I always try
sure.
to find
I love
tracks
your clips,
that
by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I always try to find tracks that, one thing I do is like everybody plays the tracks that come out now. You know what I mean? The tracks come out
Yeah,
now, everybody plays them. I wait about a couple weeks or so. I wait a couple weeks to play them. That way they go past the initial phase, and then I hit
yes.
them again with those tracks. But I love playing tracks from people that are not well known, but they sound phenomenal. Well, that's one thing. So back to Quantum now. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I want to take you from the DJ decks a bit to the producer chair for a bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When you sit
Yeah, of
down
course.
to produce, what comes first for you when you have to start a brand new track? Is it the melody, the bass line, or do you start off with the drum groove, or how do you work?
Yeah, no, it is. It is melody. So you know, when I write a track, I write the break first because the break's got all the chord progression in there with the pads. It's got all your melodies in there from your leads. So you almost sort of writing. It's almost like writing a book. You now know what that book's about already, in a sense. If that
Yeah,
makes sense, hopefully it does. But yeah, I always start with the break first. I get all those core elements in. I build the break as if it's just come into the break to where it's come out of the break. Get that completely built with all the effects. You know, all the automation and all those bits and pieces. And then from there, you know, like, okay, so I'm in the key of A minor or B flat or whatever it may be. And then what I then do is get the core parts like the melody and the pads, put them over into the main drop section. And then from there, you can then tune everything into it. So like your kick drums, your percussion, your bass, you know, your subs, your mid basses. From that point, you know exactly what that intro's got to do, where it's going. So then you can then get to the intro, write your intro, flip the intro over. That then becomes your outro. And all of a sudden you've built a track. It's not
exactly.
finished, it's not polished, but you've got all the core elements in there and you've got your track laid out. And yeah, I use reference tracks a lot as well. I like using reference tracks just for ideas. I don't copy a reference track. I'm not trying to make John Askew's new track or anything like that. But it's good to reference other people's music
Definitely.
and what they're doing and in their structure and stuff like that. So I do that as well.
And since you're also a DJ, when we speak intro and outro, I could imagine just for the viewer that it also has an influence on how you do your intros and outros because you know how to mix
Yes.
them.
Yeah, because it winds me up sometimes when you get an absolutely amazing track from a real top end producer and you go and mix it, and where you think it's going to drop, he's added another 4 kick drums or something like that. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Wow.
You've just ruined the tune. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I never do surprises. So yeah, no, you're right. I always structure my tunes as if I'm going to be DJing them, and I love. I know a lot of DJs these days. I don't know if it's a timid thing or not, but they'll kind of drop a track right at like the end 32 bars of the tune. So you're not really
yeah.
getting much of a mix in there. You know, I always drop my tunes about 2 minutes 20 to the end
There's
and just
trance tracks are
play
not
with it. And
8 minutes anymore.
yeah, no, yeah, we should probably talk. Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're getting extended mixes at 4 minutes and stuff. You know what I mean?
We need something to
Yeah, I've
mix
seen
on.
some of those.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why I always base my tracks. I always round about sort of 7 minutes, 45, 50, somewhere around there.
The
Very
same
rare
here.
I'll do a 6 minute tune, but yeah, it's but you know, you look back at like was it Sasha Maria Beer's one? I think that track was like 12 minutes long or something like that. You know, all those tunes back in the day.
Yeah.
And I loved that, you know, it was brilliant because it wasn't so much of a DJ tool track, it was more of a listening environment track.
It was
that
a
you would listen
journey.
to on the it was a journey. Yeah, no, you're right.
You know,
And yeah, I feel like, are we going to get that again? I don't know, but we might do.
It depends on the listeners, I
sorry.
think, because right now we have that everyone needs to be satisfied really quickly, and we can see it in EDM big room tracks are what now 2 minutes
That's
long,
right.
2:10 maybe, and we need to get away from that. We need to get people to actually listen to the music again instead of
Yes.
just
Yeah. And as I say, I don't
fast
know if it's
forward.
more of a DJ thing because, you know, they do a lot of it in like, obviously, like drum and bass. Most drum and bass tracks are about 4 minutes long these days because it's quick mixing stuff. You know, like, you know, you look at someone like Andy C, he'll probably play about, I don't know, something stupid like 50 tracks in an hour or whatever it is. But that's
Wow.
kind of not what I don't think trance is about, you know. And
No,
as long
exactly.
as, you know, nice long mixes, you know, good long tunes, good structured tunes, 12, you know, looking at 12 tunes a DJ set, you know, an hour. Yeah, it's good, you know. That's what I like to hear anyway.
Would you say that your sound over the years has become more refined, or have you begun to be more experimental over the time, or maybe a bit of both?
I guess I guess the hardest thing is when you start producing, is producing music how you want it to sound. Because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to do it. So yeah, I think, you know, over the years, and especially in the past sort of 3 years, it definitely has refined for me in the sense that, you know, I'm now making music that's in my head, if that makes sense. I can now sort of do
Yeah.
that. And yeah, I guess it's experimental. You know, I'm experimenting with nicking bits and pieces from other genres, and you know, I mean, we're always trying to better ourselves. And how I've always seen it is, you know, your next track is always better than your last track, kind of thing. It always
Exactly.
shows. Well, hopefully, it always shows sort of progression there. You know, in a way. And yeah, I think I don't think I'm quite there yet. You know, I don't think I'm quite, you know, 100% happy. And it all comes down to engineering. You know, you could
Yeah,
write
yeah.
like a really lovely piece of music, but if it's engineered like terrible, no one's going to listen to it. But if it's the other way
No,
around, if the track's like, you know, it's
it's gonna,
squabble,
yeah.
if it's
And
engineered really well,
if you
it'll
do
do well.
bad music or a bad mix down, then the mastering and mixing part is just gonna enhance that. It's not. You can. We have a Danish mix and mastering engineer called Holger Lagerfeld, and he says I can sprinkle a lot of beautiful things on this turd, but that's is what it is, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, you know, you're exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, the mastering engineer is he's just there to add some salt and pepper to the final
Yeah,
dish. Do you know
exactly.
what I mean? Just elevate it slightly. So, and I never understood that. I don't think back in the day. I think I sort of took that the wrong way. I was sort of giving tracks to mastering engineers. They're like, Ben, this, you know, I've got to do so much here. I'll try my best, kind of thing, you know. And it's like,
I
right,
was the
I really
same.
need to learn how to mix them up. But I'll be honest. I mean, you know, I've invested in myself. I've invested in the studio. I've now got half decent set of monitors. I've got an acoustic treated room, soundproof
And
room.
that's
I
also
completely
a
built
part
this
of
room
being
from scratch.
experimental, I guess,
Yeah,
beginning to
yeah, it
say,
is.
I invest in myself and I learn new stuff
Yeah,
of what I've
yes.
actually done.
Yeah, no,
As you know,
100%.
AI seems to be everywhere. I don't know if you have used AI yet, but AI in trance production, would you say that it's a yes or no, or is it good as
No,
a tool?
I
I
mean,
don't know what your experience.
yeah. I think the thing with AI, I mean, I think you could probably talk about it for hours in a way, you know, and I think whether you like it or hate it, I think it's just going to elevate even more from here, and it's just going to get more used and more known.
That's
And
right.
it's a shame, really. I mean, I don't use AI, but you know, it's like okay, some guy, you know, he calls himself a producer. Check this track out that I've made on this AI software. Oh, right, you know, how did you do that? I don't know how I did it. I just typed it in. Well, you know, you can't really call yourself a producer in that way. I don't want something making my music. I love making music, whether it's good or bad. That's what I love. But also, you know, you got to think about AI in sort of mastering, AI in vocals. You know, I mean, now you can get sort of software where you've probably seen where you sort of type in your MIDI notes, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
there's a scale, and then you write in the words in each MIDI note, you choose which vocalist you want, and bang, you've got this vocal.
same.
You know, I mean, not being funny, but you know, what about you know your Ren Fays, your Stacey J's, your Lucy Clarks, all these amazing vocalists who've spent years dedicated to honing their craft and also being lyricists as well, writing music. You know, I worry that what will happen to people like that, and I guess
It's
people like us as well in a way.
such a
Yeah, you know,
it's so hard because I've used it as a tool because I I think in some points it's great and it can teach us a lot, or it can make me a custom sound or one-shot effect. But as using it as a person for everyone coming in and say,
Yeah.
hey, I want to create music and I don't know how to, and I don't want to invest the time in learning, so I can just do like
Yeah.
this and push enter. That's wrong. And yet again, then I'm personally like, it's okay, but we need to have some labeling, because as you said, people go in from the street now and call themselves a producer. And I see it on TikTok, especially people who has released 12 albums in the last year. Man, have you seen some of the biggest artists? They haven't even made 12 albums.
Yeah,
There's
I
something
know.
there isn't right, you know? We
I
need to
know. It
label
is.
it.
It's kind of an insult in a way, isn't it? I think it's kind of an insult
Yeah,
in a
yeah, it
way,
is.
you know,
Yeah,
and especially with like
label your
mastering engineers, those kind of guys as well.
label yourself as, we have talked with other guests before, it's a good tool, and if you want to be an AI producer, it's fine, but at least then come clean to it and say,
It
hey,
needs
I'm an AI
a
producer.
separate platform. Yeah, yeah. Because I
Exactly.
think Bandcamp have now sort of caught onto it. I know they put a big sort
Yeah,
of note on it now, which is good.
and it's
But no,
definitely
no,
not
you're
the
right.
first one.
You could spend hours making a tune and it doesn't get anywhere, and then someone does a track on AI and it blows up on Beatport. It's like, well, thanks.
We mentioned to other guests that record labels themselves, they're going to have a couple categories, producer, AI producer, and then kind
Right.
of release the tracks as such, because
Mm.
I agree with you. It's going to continue to grow. Our producer,
It needs a complete separate platform from what we do.
exactly.
No, it,
I
it
agree.
needs its own Beatport, it needs its own Spotify. If you want to go listen to AI music, you're more than welcome to. It's fine, but it needs to be separate from us. I think we can't be competing in charts with it.
No.
Is
Yes,
kind
of
of probably what
course.
I'm getting at there. Yeah.
There was check this out. There was a country band in the U.S. They got #1 on the country Billboard, and the whole thing was AI. I mean, 100%
Wow.
AI. The entire band,
Yeah.
the video, the music, everything was AI, and nobody had any idea
Right.
there was AI.
That must have been good
Nothing.
AI.
So I'm sure. So going back to trance, it seems like there's a revival for the past year, the past, 2-3 years, especially with
Yeah.
uplifting trance, especially with the faster, 138
Yeah.
BPM, 140 BPM. There seems to be a current revival interest. What do you think is driving that interest with this kind of trance? Where do you see
Yeah.
uplifting, with so much stuff getting mixed nowadays with uplifting trance? Where do you see that headed the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment, mate, and as I said before, it's down to engineering. I mean, some of the tracks these guys are doing. I mean, you listen to like Schneider's Home. I bet every producer heard that when that riff came in. It was like, how the hell did you make that riff?
Yeah.
Like, I need to go try and make that. Has it got phases in it? Is it doing this? Is it doing that? It's even like the melodies people are making. You look at people like Cold Blue. I mean, his tracks are just unbelievably good. And I think that's, well, for me anyway, that's what's sort of making it where it is at the moment. And I think a lot of it, yeah, it's down to the engineering that the guys are doing. Because yeah, I mean they're absolutely phenomenal producers. These guys. But where's Trance going? I mean, who knows? Who knows? In 2 years' time, I might be back writing drum and bass or garage or I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Nah, stick with it. I mean, but you got to look at like who's climbing the ranks at the moment. So I've always said it. I'm going to drop his name if that's all right. But I've always said it. Jason Gray to me is the future of our scene, like 100%. I think
Yeah,
he is
he's
just
amazing.
absolutely bang on in what he's doing. He's such an amazing guy as well. He's become a really good friend of mine. I've never even met the guy. We chat for hours. He's always picking me up as well when I'm getting low. He's always checking my tracks. And he's definitely got a sound going on. You hear a track and you're like, yeah, it's a Jason Gray track.
Yeah.
And I know he's just been signed now to Nocturnal Nights, but I kind of hope like someone big, Brian or someone grabs him and goes, right, let's elevate you now, let's get you there, because he deserves it.
Yeah,
Man.
he's amazing. He's
So
amazing.
as long as we've got those guys, like All in Order, you obviously got your Hayes and Hawkers. What's
Yep.
happening with Eternal Waves? Has he retired yet? I don't know, but if he hasn't retired, hopefully he can keep it going.
Hey,
But
You
yeah,
know,
No one knows.
he was
I
our
think
first
it's in good
guest.
hands. Yeah, I think. I know, so yeah, I think Trance is in good hands with these producers coming up the ranks. I just think sometimes, you know, they need a bigger artist just to grab them and help them get to that point.
Of course.
And I do hope it's Jason. I really do.
You personally, with your DJing, with your producing, how do you stay relevant? You know, there's a lot of competition, as you know, friendly competition,
There is,
mostly.
yeah.
But how do you stay relevant without chasing any trends?
I guess so. The trance I'm trying to make, and as I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the interview, was my roots. So like my hard trance roots back in the mid noughties. You know, yeah, I was following guys like Phil Reynolds, Steve Blake, James Lawson. I'm almost trying to like capture a little bit of that sound and put it into my own way. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to be the next, even though I wish I was good as him, I don't want to be the next Cold Blue. I don't want to be the next John Askew. So I try not to listen to too much music as well. I'm very focused on my own music at the moment. You know, I just love listening to my own tracks in a mix, things like that. And I reference back to older music as well. And I find that's kind of helped me a little bit. And sometimes I do write a tune and I'm like, oh no, am I going down the route now? Am I chasing trends here? Am I trying to make this tune this way, even though I don't like it, just because I can get it signed on or try and get it signed on Future Sound of Egypt or someone like that? No, I want to try and stay true to my own. And if the labels pick it up, the labels pick it up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I've sort of found some labels that I'm working quite well with at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. I don't want to sell myself out. I want to keep doing what I like doing. And the same with the DJ sets as well. Play the tunes I like, not just play a track because it's an anthem and I know it's going to make everyone like it, but I don't really like it. I wouldn't do that in a set.
I also think it comes when you have produced for over a couple of years and find out more about yourself, that you relax more in, I don't need to make what everyone else is making. I need to make what I think is good and what I like. Because
yes, exactly. Yes.
Then
yeah, you're right. And
you're
even
also
if
gonna
there's
have
like
a good
5
production.
people that like it, 50 people that like it, that's what it is.
It's still
So,
people
yeah.
that. And in the end,
It is.
if there's no one and you still like it yourself, then that should be good enough, right? Was there a moment in time where in your producing career and DJ career where you were like, okay, now it's getting more than just a hobby?
It was, yeah. So I think it was when you start getting noticed by your heroes in a way, and it was actually the Strange World remix. It was just after we made Strange World. Me and Hoops were at Ministry of Sound. We went DJing. We were on a night out. It was a frantic event, and Ministry of Sound's kind of like got like 2 main rooms in a way. You've got the main room, which is the box, and then there's this other room, which should be a main room in its own right, called the 103. And in the 103, it was hosted by a London promotion called ATT, which is all things trance. And it was all like the guys I was listening to back in the day played earlier, Steve Blake's, Trevor McLaughlin's, and obviously Phil Reynolds. And Phil Reynolds was there. He was one of the main DJs playing, because obviously over time we've sort of built up a kind of a hello sort of friendship, really. And he saw that I'd done the Strange World track, and he came up to me in the club and he said, "You never sent it to me." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I should have sent it to you, mate. Sorry, I kind of bottled it a little bit." And he's like, No, send it to me. I would have played it out tonight." And then Hoops goes, "I've got it in my pocket." I'm like, "You've got it in your pocket?" Okay, fair enough. So he had a memory stick in his pocket with Strange World on it. I'm like, "Okay, that's random, fair enough." So we gave it to Phil, and Phil was like, "Yeah, nice one." And we waited for Phil to come on. There's probably sort of a quarter of the way into his set, you hear it come in, and I'm like, "Here we go. Let's see how this one goes
That's
down."
amazing.
In it. And it absolutely erupted. I was right at the front with Phil by the box. There was people coming up to Phil and saying, "Whose remix is this?" And he was turning them around and pointing them at me, and they're like, "Oh, who are you?" sort of thing. And I'm like, "I'm Ben." Like, I did this remix of Strange World. So yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, little moments like that where you think, and then from there as well, like tracks like Voice Within, my track Voice Within that I done, I sent it out to some labels. I sent it out to Phil as well. I think it was the first properly polished track I sent to Phil. And then in about 2 weeks, I get an inbox from Phil saying, "Yeah, I really like the track. I want to sign it and I want to do a remix of it." Forget Future Sound of Egypt, forget Nocturnal Nights. That's the one for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was at that point where I thought, yeah, okay, I'm getting somewhere now. This isn't a hobby
and
anymore.
then it has also become a little bit of like full circle in a way with Phil,
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. There's one point I was, well, playing his music. Now he's playing my music in a way. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool, and he's
So
a cool,
cool.
he's a cool guy. Really cool. He's a really cool guy.
What's one lesson that you learned the hard way about building a long-term trance career?
Yeah, I guess, and it's probably good advice for any sort of producer who thinks he's there is don't be too hasty releasing music. Before everything you've seen that I've done, I released a couple of tracks quite a while back actually. They came out on an older label called Anomaly Records, and they weren't true to me. I was just in such a rush to release music and get on that train, if you like, with everyone
Yeah.
else. But those tracks, even though they had good tracks, they did really well. They actually did really well in the hype charts and stuff like that. But they're not true to who I am or my sound. So yeah, that's probably something I wish I never done. Actually, it's not saying there's anything wrong with the tracks. I'm just saying if you heard the track, you wouldn't think it was me. You wouldn't think it was a Ben Skinner track. So yeah, I wish I kind of just waited a little bit till like Voice Within was done, and then I kind of started like the big Hello, This Is Me from there, basically. But
Take
you
your
live and you
time
learn
and
these
find
things.
out who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of producers are in such a rush to get on labels just as a status
That's
thing.
true.
I was, but yeah, my advice to anyone is just wait. Make sure it is absolutely 500% perfect. And
Ben
then
Skinner tells you
approach
to wait.
people. Yes.
All right. So we finish every interview with our rapid fire questions. Short questions, short answers.
Yeah.
One word answers if you can. So here we go.
This is the quick fire round.
Favorite classic trance track of all time? Your favorite classic trance track of all time?
It's got to be Push Strange World.
Melody first or bass line first?
Melody.
Go-to software or hardware in your studio right now?
I'd say Spire. Spire's been a real go-to of mine for a long time. Yeah, that's used heavily in every one of my productions.
Biggest influence from your 1994 introduction to dance music?
I'd say it was, I'd love to say Prodigy, I really would, but I'd probably say it was the CJ Bolland moment for me, being how experimental it was.
One piece of advice for aspiring trance producers, I know you just gave one, but if you have another one?
Yeah, definitely. What I will say is invest in yourself. If you really think this is what you want to do, you've got to be absolutely jealous of your time. Invest in your time. It's going to cost. Seek help. There's so many great mentors out there at the moment. I use them myself, and it has elevated me to me. So yeah, invest in yourself.
Definitely.
All right, and last question. One track that still gives you goosebumps today.
Do you know what? I know we mentioned it as well earlier. I want to say Sasha Expander. I noticed Adele, she played it on Facebook the other day. I listened to it and I was like, oh yeah, it's there still. It's Sasha Expander.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And Strange World. They're all good.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Always Strange World.
Yeah.
Ben, it has been a pleasure having you here on our podcast. Thank you so much. And it has been a true pleasure to just hear a bit about you and dive into your journey and a bit about who you are.
Thank you much. I left the heating on in my studio yesterday and it is like a sauna.
He's just nervous.
We will.
But no, thank you guys for having me on. Yeah, they meant well
yes.
to be honest when you asked me to come on. Thank you.
And for everyone listening, make sure you check out Ben Skinner's latest release and also keep an eye on his upcoming releases and DJ sets that he may be doing. Danny, back to you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with everyone you know. And then we see you next time.
And until then, guys, it's been a pleasure. And remember, this is 1Trance podcast where trance meets you.
Thank you for watching and listening to the 1Trance podcast. Do you have any questions you would like to have answered? Let us know. Take care. and see you next time. 1Trance, where trance meets you.